They say that when you marry someone, you marry their family too. But sometimes that family comes with secrets that can destroy everything you've built together. My name is Sebastian, and this is the story of how my mother-in-law's greed and manipulation during our home renovation revealed her true nature and led me to orchestrate a revenge so complete that it changed our entire family dynamic forever. My wife Claire and I had been married for 5 years when we decided to renovate our first home. We had saved for years to buy a beautiful but outdated house in a great neighborhood, and we were finally ready to transform it into our dream home. The renovation was going to be extensive new kitchen, updated bathrooms, finished basement, and a complete overhaul of the electrical and plumbing systems. Claire's mother, Diane, had always been involved in our lives, but she seemed particularly interested in our renovation project. Diane was a widow who had been living alone since Claire's father passed away 3 years earlier, and she often complained about feeling isolated and bored. When we mentioned our renovation plans, she immediately volunteered to help coordinate the project while Claire and I were at work. At first, I was grateful for Diane's offer to help. Managing a major renovation while working full-time seemed overwhelming, and having someone we trusted to oversee the contractors and handle the day-to-day details felt like a blessing. Diane had experience with home improvements from renovating her own house years earlier, and she seemed genuinely excited about helping us create our perfect home. Diane threw herself into the project with enthusiasm that impressed both Claire and me. She researched contractors, got multiple quotes for every aspect of the work, and created detailed schedules and budgets. She spent hours at our house every day, meeting with workers, checking on progress, and keeping us updated on everything that was happening. The renovation was supposed to take 3 months, but it quickly became clear that it was going to be a much longer and more expensive process than we had anticipated. Costs kept escalating as we discovered problems with the foundation, outdated wiring that needed to be completely replaced, and plumbing issues that required extensive work. Diane was incredibly supportive during these setbacks, constantly reassuring us that renovations always cost more than expected and that the final result would be worth the investment. She helped us navigate the financial challenges by suggesting ways to prioritize the most important work and delay some of the cosmetic improvements until later. What I didn't realize at the time was that Diane was using her position as our renovation coordinator to systematically steal from us. She had been inflating contractor quotes, pocketing the difference between what she told us projects would cost and what they actually cost. She had been ordering expensive materials and then returning them for cash refunds that she kept for herself. She had even been billing us for work that was never actually performed. The theft was sophisticated and carefully planned. Diane would show us quotes from contractors that included inflated prices, then negotiate lower actual costs with the workers while keeping the difference. She would order premium materials that we thought we were paying for, then substitute cheaper alternatives and return the expensive items for refunds. She would create fake invoices for additional work that she claimed was necessary but that was never actually done. Because we trusted Diane completely and because she was handling all the financial details of the renovation, we never questioned her management of the project. We were grateful to have someone we could rely on to handle the stress and complexity of coordinating multiple contractors and managing a large budget. The renovation dragged on for 6 months, then 8 months, then nearly a year. Our budget had ballooned from the original estimate of $50,000 to over $90,000. We had to take out a second mortgage on the house to cover the unexpected costs, and we were struggling financially in ways we had never experienced before. Throughout this period, Diane continued to be supportive and encouraging. She sympathized with our financial stress and even offered to lend us money to help cover some of the costs. She presented herself as the devoted mother who was sacrificing her time and energy to help her daughter and son-in-law achieve their dream of a beautiful home. The truth about Diane's theft was revealed in the most unexpected way. I had been working late one evening when I realized I had left an important document at the house. When I arrived to pick it up, I found Diane in our kitchen, but she wasn't alone. She was meeting with one of our contractors, and they were discussing a cash payment that he was giving her. I stayed hidden and listened to their conversation, which revealed the scope of Diane's deception. The contractor was returning money to Diane that represented the difference between what she had told us his work would cost and what it had actually cost. They were discussing how to handle the fake invoices she had been creating for work that was never performed. They were even laughing about how easy it had been to deceive us. I was devastated. The woman I had trusted to help us create our dream home had been systematically stealing from us for months. She had been using our trust and her position as Claire's mother to rob us of tens of thousands of dollars. She had been the cause of our financial stress while pretending to be our supportive helper. But what made it even worse was the realization that Diane had been planning this theft from the beginning. She hadn't volunteered to help us out of love or generosity. She had seen our renovation as an opportunity to steal money from us. She had been calculating and strategic about her deception, using her knowledge of our finances and our trust in her to maximize the amount she could steal. I confronted Diane immediately, demanding an explanation for what I had witnessed. Her reaction was telling. Instead of showing remorse or trying to explain her actions, she became defensive and angry. She accused me of spying on her and claimed that I had misunderstood what I had seen. She tried to turn the situation around by suggesting that I was being paranoid and ungrateful for all the help she had provided. When I pressed her for details about the financial discrepancies I had discovered, Diane's story began to fall apart. She couldn't explain why contractor quotes she had shown us were different from the actual amounts being paid. She couldn't account for materials that we had supposedly purchased but that were nowhere to be found. She couldn't justify invoices for work that had clearly never been performed. Eventually, faced with overwhelming evidence of her theft, Diane admitted to what she had been doing. But instead of showing remorse, she tried to justify her actions by claiming that she deserved compensation for all the time and effort she had put into managing our renovation. She argued that we should be grateful for her help and that the money she had taken was fair payment for her services. I was furious. Diane had stolen tens of thousands of dollars from us, caused us significant financial hardship, and then tried to justify her theft by claiming she deserved to be paid for her help. She had betrayed our trust in the most fundamental way possible, and she showed no genuine remorse for the damage she had caused. I told Diane that I was going to expose her theft to Claire and that we would be pursuing legal action against her. I also made it clear that she was no longer welcome in our home and that her relationship with our family was over. Diane's reaction was predictable. She begged me not to tell Claire about what she had done, claiming that it would destroy their relationship and break Claire's heart. She promised to pay back the money she had stolen and to never do anything like this again. She tried to manipulate me by suggesting that exposing her theft would hurt Claire more than it would hurt her. But I had seen too much evidence of Diane's deception and manipulation to be swayed by her pleas. I realized that this wasn't the first time she had betrayed someone's trust, and it wouldn't be the last unless she faced serious consequences for her actions. I decided that Diane was going to learn that stealing from family comes with consequences she had never imagined. I wanted her to lose not just the money she had stolen, but everything else she valued as well. I wanted her theft to be exposed to everyone who knew her, and I wanted her to face both legal and social consequences for her betrayal. The plan I developed was comprehensive and would unfold over several months. I wanted Diane to believe that she had successfully manipulated me into keeping her secret, right up until the moment when her world collapsed around her. Phase 1 involved documenting every aspect of Diane's theft. I hired a forensic accountant to analyze all of our renovation expenses and identify exactly how much money Diane had stolen and how she had done it. I gathered copies of all the fake invoices, inflated quotes, and fraudulent receipts that Diane had used to deceive us. I also hired a private investigator to look into Diane's background and financial situation. What we discovered was that our renovation wasn't Diane's first theft. She had a pattern of taking advantage of people who trusted her, including other family members and friends who had asked for her help with various projects. The private investigator found evidence that Diane had stolen money from her elderly neighbor by offering to help with home repairs and then overcharging for work that was never completed. She had taken advantage of a friend who had asked her to help plan a wedding by inflating vendor costs and keeping the difference. She had even stolen from her own sister by borrowing money for a supposed emergency that never existed. Phase 2 involved Diane's financial situation and living arrangements. Through the investigation, I learned that Diane was in significant debt and was facing the possibility of losing her house. She had been using the money she stole from us to make payments on credit cards and loans that she couldn't otherwise afford. I arranged for Diane's creditors to learn about her unstable financial situation and her history of theft. Her credit was destroyed, her loan applications were denied, and she was forced to put her house on the market to avoid foreclosure. Phase 3 involved Diane's social circle and community reputation. Diane was very active in her church and various community organizations, and she prided herself on being seen as a helpful and trustworthy person. Her reputation was incredibly important to her, and she had built her entire social identity around being the kind of person others could rely on. I began sharing information about Diane's theft with people in her community, always framing it as a warning about someone who takes advantage of people's trust. I made sure that her church, her volunteer organizations, and her social groups became aware of her pattern of stealing from people who asked for her help. Diane's reputation was destroyed almost overnight. People who had trusted her with their own projects began to question whether she had stolen from them as well. Organizations that had relied on her volunteer work asked her to step down from her positions. Friends who had considered her trustworthy began to distance themselves from her. Phase 4 was more personal and involved Diane's relationship with Claire and the rest of her family. I wanted Diane to experience the same isolation and betrayal that she had inflicted on us. I began sharing information about Diane's theft with other family members, including Claire's aunts, uncles, and cousins. The family was shocked to learn about Diane's pattern of theft and deception. Many of them began to question their own interactions with Diane and to wonder if she had taken advantage of them as well. Some family members came forward with their own stories of suspicious financial dealings with Diane that they had previously overlooked or explained away. Phase 5 involved the legal consequences of Diane's theft. I filed a police report detailing Diane's fraud and provided all the evidence that the forensic accountant and private investigator had gathered. The case was strong enough that the district attorney decided to pursue criminal charges against Diane. The final phase was designed to bring everything together in the most devastating way possible. I wanted Diane to face the legal consequences of her theft at the same time that she lost her home, her reputation, and her family relationships. I coordinated the timing so that Diane would be arrested for fraud at the same time that her house was being foreclosed on and her community relationships were being destroyed. I also arranged for Claire to learn about her mother's theft in a way that would make it impossible for Diane to manipulate or minimize her actions. The confrontation happened on a Tuesday morning in March, exactly 6 months after I had discovered Diane's theft. Police arrived at Diane's house with a warrant for her arrest on charges of fraud, theft, and elder abuse related to her pattern of stealing from people who trusted her. At the same time, Claire received a comprehensive report from the forensic accountant detailing exactly how her mother had stolen from us and how much money was involved. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable, showing a pattern of calculated deception that had been going on for months. Diane's reaction was predictable. She tried to deny everything, claiming that the evidence against her had been fabricated. She accused me of being vindictive and trying to destroy her relationship with Claire. She even tried to convince Claire that I was lying about her theft and that she was being framed. But the evidence was too strong and too detailed for Diane's denials to be credible. The forensic accountant's report showed exactly how she had inflated costs, created fake invoices, and stolen money from our renovation budget. The private investigator's findings revealed her pattern of taking advantage of other people who had trusted her. Diane was arrested and charged with multiple felonies. The evidence against her was so overwhelming that her lawyer advised her to accept a plea deal rather than go to trial. She was sentenced to 2 years in prison and ordered to pay full restitution for all the money she had stolen. But the legal consequences were just the beginning of Diane's punishment. Her arrest and conviction became public knowledge, destroying any remaining reputation she had in her community. Her pattern of theft was exposed, warning potential future victims about her methods. Claire's relationship with her mother was permanently damaged. Learning that Diane had been systematically stealing from us while pretending to help was devastating for Claire. She felt betrayed not just by the theft itself, but by the calculated way her mother had used their family relationship to deceive us. Diane lost her house to foreclosure and was forced to move in with a distant relative who was willing to take her in after her release from prison. Her social circle abandoned her community organizations expelled her, and her family relationships were severely damaged. Most importantly, Diane's scheme to steal money from our renovation was completely exposed and reversed. All of the money she had stolen was eventually recovered through the restitution order, and we were able to complete our renovation properly with contractors we trusted. Claire and I, meanwhile, were able to rebuild our finances and our trust in each other. The experience taught us valuable lessons about protecting ourselves from people who would take advantage of family relationships. We implemented new safeguards for any future projects that required us to trust others with significant amounts of money. We also became more selective about who we allowed to become involved in our personal and financial affairs. We learned that family relationships don't automatically make someone trustworthy, and that it's important to verify and document important financial transactions even when dealing with people we love. The experience was traumatic for Claire, but it also opened her eyes to her mother's true character. She realized that Diane had been manipulative and self-serving throughout their relationship, and that many of the helpful things Diane had done over the years had actually been ways to gain access to information or resources that she could exploit. Claire and I grew closer as a couple through the experience of dealing with Diane's betrayal together. We learned that we could trust each other completely, and that our marriage was strong enough to survive even the most challenging family situations. Our home renovation was eventually completed, and it turned out beautifully. Without Diane's theft draining our budget, we were able to afford the quality materials and skilled contractors that we had originally planned for. The house became everything we had dreamed it would be, and it represented our ability to overcome betrayal and build something beautiful together. People sometimes ask me if I regret the way I handled Diane's theft. They wonder if I should have tried to handle the situation privately within the family, if I should have been more forgiving of her behavior, if my revenge was too comprehensive and public. But they don't understand what it's like to be systematically robbed by someone you trust completely. They don't know what it feels like to discover that a family member has been using your love and trust to steal from you while pretending to help you achieve your dreams. Diane made her choice when she decided to use our renovation as an opportunity to steal from us. She made her choice when she created fake invoices and inflated costs to maximize the amount she could take. She made her choice when she showed no genuine remorse for her theft and tried to justify her actions by claiming she deserved to be paid for her help. I simply made sure she faced the full consequences of those choices. The woman who had wanted to profit from our trust and generosity learned what it felt like to lose everything. The woman who had been willing to steal from her own daughter and son-in-law discovered what happened when her pattern of theft was exposed, and she could no longer manipulate people into trusting her. Diane got exactly what she deserved, and Claire and I got the opportunity to build our dream home and our marriage on a foundation of honesty and mutual trust, without the toxic influence of someone who would steal from family. Today, Claire and I have a beautiful home and a strong marriage built on the knowledge that we can trust each other completely. We've learned to be more careful about who we trust with important aspects of our lives, but we haven't let Diane's betrayal make us cynical or suspicious of everyone. The best revenge against someone who tries to use family relationships to steal from you isn't necessarily destroying them completely. Sometimes it's simply protecting what's yours, exposing their pattern of behavior to prevent them from hurting others, and building something beautiful from the trust and love that they tried to exploit. Diane wanted to use our renovation project and our trust in her to steal money that we had worked hard to save. Instead, she learned that family relationships come with responsibilities as well as privileges, and that people who betray family trust usually end up alone and with nothing. That's a lesson that has served her well during her time in prison and in whatever life she's building for herself now. And it's a lesson that has served Claire and me well as we've built our dream home and our marriage on a foundation of honesty, trust, and mutual respect. The renovation that was supposed to be Diane's opportunity to steal from us became the foundation for our beautiful home and our strong marriage. And the trust she tried to exploit became the basis for a relationship built on complete honesty and transparency. Sometimes the most effective revenge is simply letting someone discover that their greed and betrayal have consequences, and that the people they've tried to exploit are stronger and more resilient than they ever imagined possible. Diane thought she could use our family relationship and our trust to steal from us without consequences. Instead, she learned that some betrayals are unforgivable, and that people who steal from family usually end up losing everything that matters to them. The home renovation that was supposed to fund Diane's lifestyle became the evidence that sent her to prison. And the family relationship she thought she could exploit became the foundation for a marriage built on complete trust and honesty. Family is everything, but only when it's built on love, trust, and mutual respect. Diane learned too late that family relationships built on manipulation and greed always collapse, and that real family bonds are strengthened when they survive betrayal and emerge stronger than before. That's a lesson that has served our marriage well as we've built our dream home and our life together. And it's a lesson that will serve as a warning to anyone else who might think they can use family relationships to steal from people who trust them.